Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being on this webinar. Please, we'll start in a couple of minutes. Let's just give one more minute for a couple of more people to join. We can see a lot of people are already on. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the AfCFTA Go Global webinar series, Cohort 1. My name is Oluwaseyi Adepoju, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's session. We are delighted to have founders, SMEs, creatives, digital service providers, ecosystem partners, and policymakers joining us from across Nigeria and beyond. This webinar series has been designed with a clear objective, which is to help Nigerian businesses move from local relevance to Can you all hear me? I can hear comments about my voice being low. If it's better now, you can thumbs up. Now, this webinar series has been designed with a clear objective to help Nigerian businesses move from local relevance to continental competitiveness under Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The AfCFTA is not just a policy instrument, it's a market opportunity. And this series is about translating that opportunity into real practical pathways for businesses. This webinar is brought to you by the Digital Trade Desk of the Federal Ministry of Communication, Innovation, and Digital Economy. This first cohort is proudly supported by Intransact and Champs Nigerian PLC. Why this season really matters. Now, today's session sets the foundation for the entire series. If we get this right, we'll then move on to understanding why Go Global and why AfCFTA and how AfCFTA enables and how data services can be exported. Then everything that follows in the later session becomes clearer and more actionable. This session will run for 90 minutes. We encourage you to use the slide dropped. There's the Slido link dropped in the chat for questions you may have. Stay with us to the end. Engage actively as we will be building on today's discussion in subsequent sessions. Also, there's a link to a WhatsApp group in a given case where you want access to presentations that will be used in the webinar and other instant information as the webinar series goes on. Kindly check the chat group and click on the Slido link to have your questions shared with the facilitators. And also, join the WhatsApp group to get live updates and information about the webinars. Now, the theme for today's session is why go global? Exporting digital services under AfCFTA. Our core outcome is simple. By the end of this season, or session as it may be, participants should understand what AfCFTA digital trade opportunities are, what readiness really means for digital exporters, how Nigerian digital services can scale across African markets. To ground today's discussion, it is important we begin with the policy and regulatory context. What AfCFTA actually provides, how Nigeria is positioned, and what this means for SMEs and digital exporters. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Fatima Bello. She is the Deputy Lead, Trade Enablement and Coordinator for Policies, Regulations, and Law at the Nigerian AfCFTA Coordination Office. Unfortunately, Dr. Fatima Bello, who was scheduled to lead this session from the Nigerian AfCFTA Coordination Office, is unwell and able to join us as of today. So I'll be stepping in to ensure we still deliver a comprehensive, policy-grounded, and practical session on AfCFTA digital trade. Please be aware today's session is foundational. Everything we will cover in later sessions, from payments, market entry, compliance, partnership, rests on one key question. Why should Nigerians go global? And how does AfCFTA make that possible, especially for digital services? Now, to truly appreciate why this conversation matters, especially for digital businesses, we first need to reset how we think about AfCFTA. AfCFTA is often discussed in the context of physical goods, trucks crossing the borders, containers at ports, customs procedures, tariffs, and logistics. But that's only one part of the story. AfCFTA is not just a trade agreement for physical goods. It's a market integration framework deliberately designed to unlock services, digital trade, and cross-border value creation across Africa. And this distinction is extremely important for everyone on this call who provides services, builds platform, creates content, or deliver value digitally. When we say market integration framework, what we really mean is this. AfCFTA is not simply about exporting occasionally. It's about enabling African businesses to operate across borders seamlessly, as though Africa were one connected market. For digital businesses, this matters because your biggest constraints are often not physical. They are regulatory, financial, legal, and infrastructural. AfCFTA is designed to reduce those frictions over time. AfCFTA creates a single market of over 1.4 billion people. That is not a future aspiration. That's markets already existing. Combined, it represents a GDP of over $3 trillion. For digital businesses, this scale means something very practical. It means your growth potential does not end at Nigerian borders. A critical point that is sometimes missed. Services trade is a core pillar of AfCFTA, and these include ICT and softwares, creative industries, professional and consulting services, education and digital learning platforms, In other words, many of the businesses represented on this webinar are already operating in sectors AfCFTA was designed to support. Nigeria is a signatory to AfCFTA and an active participant in its implementations. There are dedicated national coordination structures, policy teams, trade enablement initiatives designed to help Nigerian businesses participate effectively. This means Nigerian businesses are not expected to navigate AfCFTA alone. Historically, African businesses have grown with this mindset: build locally, then export to Europe, the US, or even Asia. AfCFTA introduces a strategic shift from exporting to the world individually to scaling first across Africa, then globally. This is not about lowering ambition. It's about building strength regionally before competing globally. Let's now talk about digital trade in very simple terms. Digital trade refers to trade enabled by digital technologies. Under AfCFTA, this includes software and SaaS, creative content such as films, music, writers, professional services delivered remotely are also included. Platforms like fintechs, edtech, healthtechs are also included. Freelancing and remote work are also included, which means if your services can be delivered through the internet, you are part of the digital trade ecosystem. Digital services are uniquely powerful because they have low marginal costs, cross-border delivery, they require no physical logistics, they are highly scalable, and they are youth and women inclusive. They also align perfectly with Africa's greatest assets, a young digital-first population. The AfCFTA Protocol on Trade in Services, alongside the Emerging Digital Trade Protocol, is designed to reduce regulatory friction, encourage mutual recognition, and support cross-border digital service provision. This framework won't eliminate all challenges overnight, but they provide a clear direction of travel. So why should Nigerian businesses act now? There are three strategic reasons. Number one, market saturation at home. Nigerian talent often outgrows the local market quickly. Many founders reach a point where growth slows, not because the product is weak, but because the market is limited. Secondly, demand across Africa. Across Africa, SMEs, government, and corporates increasingly demand Nigerian tech, creative, and professional services. Nigerian export talent are large in number informally every day. AfCFTA allows us to do it structurally and sustainably. The last third point, policy tailwinds. AfCFTA lowers barriers within African first before global expansion. This makes Africa the most logical first export destination. AfCFTA makes Africa the first export market, not the last. One critical misconception we must address in this: readiness is not just registration. Being AfCFTA ready is about operational capability. What are the pillars of readiness? I will highlight 4 critical pillars of readiness. First, business and legal readiness. This includes proper business registration, a clear service offering, contracts that support cross-border delivery. Two, market readiness. You must understand demand is target country oriented. You must understand pricing for cross-border clients. You must understand cultural and language sensitiveness. Now, the third point is regulatory awareness. This includes data protection obligations, sector-specific licensing, and national rules within the AfCFTA countries. Now, the fourth point will be payments and financial readiness. This is critical because it provides the ability to receive cross-border payments, and it also helps with FS considerations. And finally, it also reposes confidence on digital payment infrastructure. Our later sessions in this series will go much deeper into these areas. AfCFTA opens up very concrete opportunities. Access to regional clients without physical offices, participation in cross-border procedure and cross-border procurement, easier movement of services as protocol matures, recognition as African, not just Nigerian, recognition as an African service provider. Importantly, AfCFTA is intentionally designed to support SMEs, women-led business, youth-driven enterprises. This series is designed to move you through a clear journey. Curiosity, clarity, capability to cross-border action. You will learn how AfCFTA works in practice, how to prepare for digital exports, how to receive payments, and how to enter new African markets. Finally, also how to avoid common compliance pitfalls. So, my call to action is simple. Stay engaged throughout the series, ask questions, think beyond Nigeria. Start positioning your business as an African service provider. AfCFTA is not a future opportunity. It is a present framework. The question is not whether to go global, it's how prepared are you to do so? With that foundation laid, we'll now move into the next phase of our webinar, which is the Q&A. We'll spend the next 10 minutes taking up Q&A, after which I will then introduce the next facilitator, specifically by 11:30, who will then come in and give us more insights into what infrastructure and payment is like with AfCFTA as we set new rules of trade game in Africa. Pending that, I will step back and wait for questions you might ask with respect to introduction and the coverage of the initial session by Dr. Fatima. Thank you, and stay with us. While the team is currently preparing your questions, which are being gathered to be answered, I would recommend we go on to the next phase so that we can then have a cumulative question and answer session, which will cover the first facilitated session and the second session. As we've heard from the policy perspective, AfCFTA sets the rules of the game. But rules alone do not move trade. Infrastructure is what determines whether trade actually happens. For digital trade exporters, one of the most common and most critical questions is this: how do we move value across borders, especially payments, efficiently, securely, and at scale? To help us unpack this, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Emeka Onyia. Mr. Emeka Onyia is the Director of Digital Business and Innovation at Afreximbank, one of Africa's most important trade finance and payment institutions, playing a central role in enabling intra-African trade under AfCFTA. In the next 20 minutes, Mr. Emeka will walk us through the infrastructure layer of AfCFTA, focusing on Pan-African digital trade infrastructure, cross-border payments and settlement rails, how initiatives such as PAPs and related platforms enable AfCFTA trade in practice. After each session, we will reserve more time for Q&A, where we will take questions directly from participants. Mr. Emeka, thank you very much for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Can you confirm you can see and hear me okay? Thumbs up will be... Okay, great. Thank you. So the next 20 minutes, and I'm going to take you through Afreximbank's response to the AfCFTA and how we are propelling infrastructure solutions that support the AfCFTA. So I'm going to share my screen and let me know when you can see. All right, awesome, thank you. So first of all, I must say a big thank you to the Federal Ministry of Communication, Innovation, Digital Economy for this outstanding webinar series and the opportunity to present to you today. So my name is Emeka Onyia, as introduced. I work with Afreximbank and building digital rails infrastructure that support our mandate of transforming Africa's trade and also supporting the AfCFTA. I'm not sure how many of you know about the bank, Afreximbank. So, quite briefly, we're a Pan-African multilateral financial institution. We have 53 countries out of 55 in Africa that are currently members. And we have 12 out of 15 in the CARICOM that are also members, that's in the Caribbean. We were created in 1993 to promote and finance intra and extra African trade. Our HQ is currently in Cairo, Egypt, where I'm based, and we have offices in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, Abuja, Nigeria, Harare, Zimbabwe, Kampala, Uganda, Yaoundé, Cameroon, and our Caribbean office is in Barbados. So our mandate is to promote intra and extra African trade and transform Africa's trade. So thank you for that initial policy presentation on AfCFTA. And I like what you said about the policy being there, but now we need to move from policy to actual realization of that policy. Throughout our experience promoting trade in Africa, there's a few things and a few barriers and challenges that we've seen that we try to resolve as part of that mandate. So let me hold on. I'm getting my slides not moving. Let me try again. 1 second. Stop sharing and share again. Okay. I think I have resolved the technical challenges. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Great stuff. So I will try and share my screen again. Let's see. All right, let me know if this works. All right. Okay, so I think we're moving now. Perfect. Okay, so what I was saying is that and apologies for that technical break. Sometimes this happens. So we're trying to move from policy to actualization of that policy of the AfCFTA. In summary, for Afreximbank, we are trying to build digital rails that helps us transform our trade, which is to promote trade between intra and extra African trade, and also intra and extra Caribbean and African trade. And to do that, we need to resolve some key barriers that we've seen that sort of limit trade between ourselves on the continent. So the few of them that we've really realized around the trade element is one, whilst there's policy now in place and it's exciting times, and we know about the market opportunities, GDP of over $3.4 trillion, and a market size of over 4 billion people. Challenges that still exist, still persist. It's one, market access, right? So you're sitting in Nigeria and you're thinking about where there might be opportunities for your services, right? Or for your products in Africa. And how do you even find out where that is? And when you do find that, how do you ensure that you make and receive payments seamlessly on the continent? For those that move goods and services, even moving goods within Africa can be more expensive than it is to import from China or the Western world into Africa. And then when you want to then grow your business, costs of financing can be a challenge, right? And then there could be issues around trust. How do I trust that this company that I've met online or I've met online that sits somewhere in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm in Nigeria? How do we build that trust within ourselves to be able to trade effectively? So these are things that we see as barriers to trade that Afreximbank is looking to solve. And we know that the AfCFTA is probably one of our boldest economic visions, right, for a continent. And we believe that it requires a digital backbone infrastructure that allow us to really capture that vision and realize opportunity to drive the efficiencies that we